Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my July 2021 reading wrap-up. If you're not already aware, I do weekly entertainment wrap-ups of everything I read, watch, and listen to, but today we're just talking about the books. Also, you've probably never seen this location before because this is not my home. I am currently on a cross-Canada road trip, and this is a hotel room in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I'm going to start with the nerdy hardcore stats and charts and then get into what I read. Also, I put chapter markers in all of my videos so you can feel free to skip forward or skip back as you need to do so. Those are down in the description. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, do that on the way down there and also click that bell notification so that you know when I upload. In July, I read 22 books for a total of 6,105 pages. This takes into account converting audiobook minutes to pages, so 3,078 of those pages were about 93 hours of audio. The age breakdown for these books was 13 adult books and 9 YA books. I read 16 novels, 4 graphic novels, 1 novella, and 1 anthology. This month, the biggest chunk of the genre pie was contemporary and nonfiction, followed by fantasy, horror, historical fiction, mystery thriller, speculative fiction, dystopian, and sci-fi. If you adjust my page count, it stays pretty predictable. Most of these books were from the library, but I did read books sent from the publisher, NetGalley, an author, and one I bought on Kindle, and another from a chain bookstore. I read 10 audiobooks, 5 paperback books, 5 ebooks, and 2 hardcovers. Most of my books were in the 200 to 399 pages range, and all but one of them were published between 2010 and now. The majority of these books were written by female authors, with a few by male and non-binary authors. Most of the protagonists were female, although there were some male-led books, ensemble books, and nonfiction without a specific lead. In terms of setting, the US and other worlds take the majority of the pie, but I did have reads from the UK, Japan, and Qatar as well. In terms of diversity, 50% of it was queer, over a quarter was intersectional, others dealt with race and feminism, and only one book didn't have any discernible diversity. In terms of star ratings, this month I had 2 3-star reads, 7 3.5-star reads, 9 4-star reads, 1 4.5-star read, and 3 5-star reads. Let's start with the lowest rated read and work our way up to the highest, shall we? I am already sweating and it's not even 9:30 in the morning. This should be fun. My first 3-star read was mostly Dead Things. This is a book about a woman who is a taxidermist, and her father was, and his father before him, so she owns a family business. Close to the beginning of the book, we find out that he has died, so the family is dealing with the grief of this situation, and this is told very fluidly between the present and the past, where the main character has fallen in love with this girl who ends up actually marrying her brother, and this whole family drama situation, as well as her mom grieving in a very different way. Although I did enjoy this, it didn't really hold my attention, which is why it's the least favorite thing I read this month. Next we have Once Stolen by D.N. Bryn, which is a companion novel to Our Bloody Pearl. And apparently when the author wrote the first book, they didn't think they'd be writing any more books in the series, but then they did. This one is about a mersnake who's been kicked out of their community, and you learn why as you go throughout the book, and you learn that the community was pretty ableist for doing so, because this character is coded as autistic and had different needs than the other people in the community. Right from the get-go, this is very action-packed, and our main character really wants to find these different rocks because he has needs for them, and meets a character who has a whole horde of them and says that he'll only help her if he can have the horde, and then it all comes down to finding the horde before other people do so they can defeat the big baddie. I liked the action and adventure and the representation of this. However, my biggest thing about it was I couldn't really picture the scenes. Suddenly we'd be in a new location and I didn't really understand what the location looked like and how these locations differed from one to another, and then sometimes people would be in the scene and I would wonder when they got there. Did I miss their entrance? Is this their entrance? What does that mean? I had a lot of questions. On to my 3.5-star reads, the first one being my anthology for this month, and that was Everyone on the Moon is Essential Personnel. Given that this collection takes this title from one of the stories, I thought that this was going to be all based on the moon and kind of have the idea of everybody in that civilization being essential. And when you get to that titular story, it actually is pointing out the opposite through capitalism's eyes, which fine, that's fair, but also I thought this collection was going to be a lot more sci-fi and that type of thing, and this was a lot more contemporary, set on our world. There were some magical realism or fantasy type of elements to it, but I read this at the beginning of the month and can't really remember any stories very clearly. Next we have Last Act by Christopher Pike. He's usually classified as horror, but I would classify this as a mystery book. Our main character is new at this school and meets a popular girl in one of her classes who says that she should audition for the play that's going on, which the popular person is directing. Through this she meets some friends, but on the opening night of the the play, something goes horribly awry and it seems like somebody is trying to pin a murder on her. From there, she tries to figure out who done it. I have been rereading some Christopher Pike because I used to read them a lot when I was a teenager, and so far this is the best one that I've picked up from the 10 or 12 that I got through thrift books. However, the explanation of who was behind it and how that all played out took up a very large amount of the book, and I thought it could have been edited better. Also, apparently nobody ever told Christopher Pike that he doesn't have to talk about the boobs of every female character he writes, because that is a big problem with his writing. Next we have The Chosen and the Beautiful, which is a reimagining of The Great Gatsby, which is an American classic that I have personally never read. All I really know about the original is the opulence of it, and that comes through in this retelling, which is kind of set in a fantasy 1920s where there is magic, and that was a really cool element to it. This one is also queer and has an Asian American protagonist, which is why I was excited to read this over just reading the classic. Next we have Bloodlust and Bonnets, which is the first graphic novel on this list. This is about this girl who is not like other girls. It's kind of set in Regency era, if I'm remembering correctly, and one day she just snaps and kills everybody at this party that she's at because she just can't take the monotony of the situation anymore. And then a vampire shows up and is like, hey, you should join my coven. And then Byron shows up and kills the vampire. Except for vampires are immortal, so that vampire just reconstituted somewhere else, and it becomes this whole thing of whether or not she's going to stay with Byron and then these other people they pick up along the way, or if she's just trying to work towards finding the vampire again so she can join the vampire's coven, which may or may not be a thing she actually ends up wanting to do. It was a lot of fun and quirky and used the I'm not like other girls trope really well, so I enjoyed it for that. Next we have Victories Greater Than Death. This is the beginning of a YA space opera type of series. When I started this book, I didn't take the premise very seriously, and I think it's because the age at which the voice actress put the main character felt really young to me, so I didn't understand how old the character was meant to be, and therefore didn't really buy into the fact that this character is from a different planet and is just waiting for aliens to come pick her up when the time is right. I honestly thought that maybe the main character's mother was living with a mental illness and had told her this all her life and that she believed it, because of course you believe your mother when you're a child. But no, actually she does have the memories of this alien trapped into her humanoid body, and once the aliens pick her up, they're supposed to unlock those memories. This is very much about friendship and adventure and queer love interests, and I ended up really enjoying it despite my initial misgivings. Next we have My Alcoholic Escape from Reality. This is a graphic novel memoir by the same person who did my lesbian experience with loneliness. I believe there's at least one other memoir between these two as well, but I haven't read that one. This is a very frank memoir about the fact that the author was using alcohol as a coping mechanism for creativity and This is a very frank memoir about the fact that the author was using alcohol as a coping mechanism, which ended up negatively impacting her health, and she had to stay in the hospital for a while, and she has to completely change her diet and her lifestyle so that doesn't happen again. I thought it was interesting because it brought in the artist experience of trying to create something, and then having that roller coaster of, is this a good idea? I think this is a great idea. This is the best thing I've ever written. This is the worst thing I've ever written. What will people think? That whole roller coaster was a part of this, and I appreciated that. Next we have The Marvelous by Claire Kahn. Unlike her other books, this one is a mystery. Essentially, there's this app in this world that people use as kind of a visual diary. You can only post videos with your face in them, and they have to be on screen the entire time. And occasionally the creator of the app will have these weekends where she invites people who use the app to her house. They have this interesting networking weekend, and then after that weekend they end up leaving the app and doing interesting things with their lives. As it turns out, these characters we are introduced to end up being the ones that are whisked away to this weekend, but this one seems a little bit weird because they have to play this game to figure out which of them is going to win the grand prize. You can think of it as a technology-based Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, with of course some more mystery and intrigue thrown in there. This was really fun. I liked how technology was incorporated into it, and I obviously felt kind of invested in it, given that I also make videos on an app. On to my 4-star reads, the first one being Children of the Land. This is a memoir of the author's time going to the United States as an undocumented immigrant and then getting citizenship, and whether or not the other members of this person's family were able to get citizenship and what that looked like. This is obviously a deeply personal story, so I always feel weird telling you other people's lives stories. So what I can tell you is the writing is really good. A lot of interesting things happen in this life, but the author never went over the line when talking about other people's business when it comes to family members, and I really appreciated that. Next we have another graphic novel, and that's Taproot. This is about a gardener who works in a nursery and he can see ghosts, and there are some complications that happen with that. The ghosts are very, very friendly, but then one day something kind of creepy starts happening and it kind of goes from there. This was a one-shot graphic novel and it felt like it could have been a series because there were quite a few twists and turns in it, so I would have liked to see a lot more editions of it, but I still really ended up enjoying it. Next we have She's Too Pretty to Burn. We have two female leads to this. One of them is a girl whose mother is a model, but she personally hates getting her picture taken. And then the other female lead is a photographer who thinks that she is beautiful and really wants to take her picture. From there we have their romance, as well as some familial problems and falling out, some best friend falling out, and then also the activism of the photographer's best friend. This is one of those books where I don't really want to say too much because by the time I was getting halfway through it, I had completely forgotten exactly how it started, which gives you an idea of the danger that's going to come later in the text, but by that point you've kind of forgotten that the danger is going to be there, so the stakes seem a little bit higher. Next we have She Drives Me Crazy. This one is a female-female romance between a basketball player and a cheerleader, and it's also a fake relationship trope, which is just a lot of fun. Essentially, the basketball player was dumped because her girlfriend decided to move to a different school that had a better basketball program, and she's looking to get back at her and kind of say, hey look, I've moved on with my life. And to do that she banks on the popularity of the cheerleader who needs something from her, so they kind of come to an agreement as to what they're going to be doing with this fake relationship. It's a lot of fun. There's lots of messy emotions. I really enjoyed that it showed us the complexity of the messy emotions and then falling for somebody even when you didn't think you'd be falling for them and not knowing whether or not you're still in love with an ex. It was cute, it was fluffy, it was a wonderful romance. I liked it. Next we have Julia Takes a Breath, the graphic novel by Gabby Rivera. This one is also a novel, which I just never ended up reading. I just never got around to it. So when I saw that it had been adapted into a graphic novel, I picked it up basically immediately because I felt bad that I had never gotten around to the original novel. This one is about a queer Puerto Rican girl living in Brooklyn who comes out to her family just before she's going across the country for an internship. And she's at the point in her life where she's really embracing feminism, which is why she took this internship. It's with a famous white feminist who also happens to be a lesbian, so they have that in common. But even as the book is starting out, she has these wonderings as to whether or not the feminism is inclusive to her sexuality, the fact that she is a brown person, all of these different things. And that kind of comes to a head while she is working for this person in Portland. I think that one of the reasons I didn't prioritize reading the book is because that I knew that the feminism practiced by the person that she goes to intern for is very white and also very hippie-ish, and I just didn't really want to read about that type of character. So it was good to see it through this lens, which was much more quick to get through, but I also was getting the perspective of this main character. Next we have The Dead in the Dark. This has two point of view characters. The first one is a girl whose two fathers are TV personality ghost hunters. One of those fathers has gone to this very small town and has been location scouting there for ages. So this point of view character and the father that she actually gets along with decide to go join him because they don't know how long he's going to be there. Our other point of view character lives in this small town and her boyfriend went missing around the time that the first dad showed up in town. And then obviously weird paranormal things happen in this town. I don't want to give too much away. This was nice and creepy and atmospheric and small town vibes and whodunit, and I ended up very much enjoying my time with it. Next we have Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey, which I listened to as an audiobook, so it was very, very short. This is about this girl who runs away from her family when she finds out that her best friend and also possibly her lover was killed by the town for having pamphlets to do with homosexuality. So she runs away. She decides that she wants to join the Pack Horse Librarians, and when she's discovered stowing away in their stuff, they decide to take her on, at least as far as they can take her on, and she comes to realize that they are all also queer people, which is just great. It sounds like I'm talking about an old western, but this one is actually dystopian because it takes place after our point in this current timeline. So there's that aspect to it. There's also finding queer family and a cute romance, and I need to read even more by this author. Next we have another memoir, which is Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. This is pitched as her memoir as somebody whose father was incarcerated and she didn't know why for a very long time. And it is that, but it's not about him. It is about her life, her upbringing, things that happened to her, and when she finds out why he's imprisoned, it deeply impacts her for reasons that you will understand when you read it. Again, this is somebody's life story, and it feels weird to tell you the life story of a real person, especially one that is currently living. So I'm going to leave it at that, besides saying that the writing in this was very strong. There are also some heavy trigger warnings for this one, so be sure to check those out before going into it. Next we have The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. This one is about a woman who is about in her mid-30s, and her grandmother has just recently died, which isn't something she cares about all too much because nobody really liked Grandma. She was not a very nice person. However, her father is in his 80s and he can't really take on the task of cleaning out Grandma's house, so she takes it on. It's in this very rural area. It doesn't even have Wi-Fi. It has a landline, but cell phones don't work there. So she packs up her truck with her laptop and her dog, and she goes to this very small location to start cleaning out Grandma's house. When she gets there, she finds out Grandma was a hoarder, so it's going to take a while, and then some creepy things start happening. This is one of those books that will make you want to make sure that all of your doors and windows are locked at night, and then it goes into some very interesting places that I did not expect. All of the creepiness kind of centers around this diary she finds one day of her step-grandfather who passed away many years ago, and she's trying to figure out this mystery while she's in the house and cleaning it out and trying to find these items that he talks about in the diary and trying to just basically figure things out because she's curious. This was fun and spooky and creepy, and I highly recommend it. My one 4.5-star read this month was Affliction by Laura Hall. This is about her time growing up in San Francisco and finding out that her father is queer. When I was approached about getting an advanced reader copy of this book, I was initially hesitant because I didn't know how the author was going to treat her father's homosexuality. I didn't know if this was going to be like, oh, woe is me, my dad was gay, or if this was going to be something much more accepting, because obviously he came out, I believe, in the 70s, and she was about 24 at the time. So I was worried that it was going to be a big rejection and then eventually coming to terms with it, and this was a much more gentle journey. And again, for the third time, it feels weird to tell you somebody's life story, so just pick this one up if it seems like something that would be interesting to you. As always, once we approach the 5-star reads, my camera battery always dies, so we're back. You might be at a different angle. My first 5-star read is a reread, and I reread it every year. That's Me and White Supremacy by Layla F. Saad. This is a fantastic resource for anyone just starting their anti-racism journey or somebody even on their anti-racism journey. It has a lot of the terms that sometimes people will not have heard of before. It goes through them very clearly, and then at the end of every chapter there are prompts so you can reflect on your own personal experience. This is my third reread. I'm going to reread it every single year, as well as reading other texts on this topic. The penultimate book on this list is May the Best Man Win. This is about two characters, both of them boys. One of them wants to win prom king because he recently came out as trans and is really just wanting people to see him for who he is, in addition to the fact that up until this point he was a very big contender for prom queen. The other point of view character is his ex-boyfriend, who has been gunning for this position for his entire high school career. He's in a bunch of different clubs. He's actually at the head of the homecoming committee, and he has a huge rivalry with the fact that now his ex is trying to take this spot from him because he needs it to get into school. He needs it so his family finally starts to see him, because his family always thought his brother, who recently passed away, was the golden boy, and they've been looking down on him since he was diagnosed as being autistic when he was a child. Obviously, this creates this big rivalry between the two of them. They are fighting back and forth to see who is going to win the crown, but they also start to talk about what went wrong in their relationship, why they broke up in the first place, and maybe they could get back together by the end. That would be very nice now, wouldn't it? I fell in love with these characters, and I hope if you read it, you will too. I've seen some reviews that are very critical of the transgender character, saying that he's just very whiny and that type of thing, and I'm just like, but I get it. I understand why he might not be the most sympathetic character in the world, but I really understand what he's going through and why he's acting the way he acts, and nobody's perfect as a teenager. My favorite book of the month was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is historical fiction that spans a couple of different decades. We find out about the relationship between these people called Mick and June, and then later we are following their children. Mick ends up making it big as a singer, and then we are mostly following his children, who have their own careers, their own passions, but they don't really associate with their father. This is told in a couple of different parts. The first part is us kind of seeing the history and backstory of the parents' relationship and kind of the upbringing of the children. And then the second part is this party that takes place at the eldest child's house that is a yearly event in Malibu with all of these celebrities and famous people and all of that coming to this party. Some people read this book and didn't really like how it was formatted and didn't really like getting to know all of these little characters from this party that you would never see again. That personally worked for me. I just really liked the writing. I really liked getting to know all of these little details about all of these different characters and how things kind of interwove. I know it doesn't work for everybody. Definitely worked for me. That's it for this week. If you've read any of these or if you're looking forward to reading any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as a link to my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to send me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!